For the 2023 Birkett Relay. I thought I'd do something a little different this time and record the introduction on my approach to the circuit. Don't worry about the camera, I'm perfectly legal. I've got my little spy glasses on with the camera in the bridge. Okay, so we're about, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 miles from the track. So I thought I'd use this chance just to give you a bit of a heads up about the Birkett, what it is, how it runs, what we're doing, so on and so forth. For those that don't know, it's a 6-hour relay race where you run up to 6 cars in a team. Now we've got 3 cars in our team. There's the Guroba Woodstock car, well, the Guroba car Woodstock, which you all know and love. There is Chris Fantana from 2RM Motorsport in his red Mazda MX-5, and joining us this year is another Puma, Matt Footman, who runs predominantly in the Road Sports and Club Sport series in his orange Puma. So there's only 3 of us. We're by no means going to be the fastest on the track. There's about 60 teams entered. But the thing about the Birkett is that it's a handicap race. So what the organisers do is they look at everyone who enters, they look at the lap times that you have done in at this circuit during the year. They'll look at the other series lap times as well. So for me, they'll look at the best time I did around the GP circuit when the Puma Cup came along, and also what the leaders of the Puma Cup did that day as well. They throw it all into a huge spreadsheet and essentially run some calculations and blah blah blah, and they work out a handicap system. Now bear in mind, I can't remember how many laps we're expected to do in 6 hours, but I think last year we got about 32 credit laps, and the idea is that everybody, you know, if everybody goes through the 6 hours without any mistakes and they hit their lap times consistently, then we should all cross the line at the checkered flag at exactly the same time. Now obviously that's not going to happen because of all the variables involved, but it means that a smaller team like us with slower cars, if we do our job properly, we should have a good chance of getting a decent result compared to Ferrari GT3s, Radicals, Caterhams, pretty much touring car spec this, V8 spec that. You know, there's a whole array of different cars out on the circuit in the Birkett. We do spend an awful lot of time getting out of the way because they're faster than us, but they've also got less credit laps than us. So they have to put their foot down and go for it in the same way we do, but we've got just as much chance of making the top 10 excuse me, making the top 10 or getting on the podium, or God forbid even winning the thing. So it's a really exciting race. Although it's 6 hours long, the handicaps vary through the event. So if somebody is outperforming their handicap, the race stewards will look at it and think, you know what, they're doing a bit too well, and they'll peg them back a lap or 2. Similarly, if you're not doing particularly well, the handicappers can give you a leg up and say, you know what, give them an extra 2 or 3 laps, and that can bring you back into contention. So the race really does ebb and flow through the duration of the 6 hours. Now, as far as logistics are concerned, I think Matt Footman is going to be starting for us tomorrow. He'll drive an hour, and then when he comes into the pit lane and crosses the garage, I will go out and follow him down the pit lane. He will peel off into the paddock at the end of the pit lane. I will go out onto the circuit and continue accruing laps for St Winifred's School Choir, which is the collective team name for us. We didn't want to run under Team Guroba, nor 2RM Motorsport or Matt Footman Racing, because we didn't want to put the identity onto one of those teams. So we run as St Winifred's School Choir, and if you are younger than me and don't know who they are, then just Google them and look them up. It's one of the most embarrassing moments in British music history. So that's a summary of the Birkett. I think I've timed that quite nicely. because if you can see, I don't know how well the image will come out, but we're just on the approach to the circuit now, seeing some signs for Silverstone. I'll wait until we go under the bridge and say my goodbye for this little section there, because I'll have to deal with the passers and whatnot and getting into the paddock. But yeah, I'm going to try and do a bit of a video log this weekend. So rather than doing like the usual highlights and in-car and everything, try and give you a bit of view of what's going on behind the scenes as a progressive event video rather than just a race one. I thought they just turned off the sign then as we approached. Right, wake up trackside, escapade, blah blah blah. I was hoping that would say Silverstone. It'd be nice to drive under it for the introduction. But I'm coming up to the entrance now, so I will see you shortly and let you know what's going on. Thank you very much. Morning everybody, part 2 of the video. It's about 8:45 on Saturday morning. Just a quick update since the last video. Parked up, got all our stuff set up in the garages and in the paddock. Unfortunately, it happens every year at the Birkett. Some team of radicals have taken about 12 garage spaces, blocked everything out with their gazebos, put up their motorhomes in the space that we've paid for, and they won't give us the time of day. So my mood is dropping because unfortunately after last night's curry, I'm not blaming the curry, but I was actually sick twice in the night, about 2 o'clock in the morning and 4 o'clock in the morning. I feel fine now. I didn't feel nauseous at the time. I can't really put it down to nerves because I've done this plenty of times before. But yeah, there's 2 lovely frozen pizzas outside my van at the moment, and it's fun watching people walk along and take an extra step to avoid it. Matt's just gone up to the assembly area for qualifying. We've got everything done on my car. I'm about to get changed, go out and put some laps in. It's not about pace this session, it's about rolling around, just checking everything is on the car is okay, and that the car can handle 2 hours of being hammered this afternoon. So this session, not about pace, just get a feel for the track, make sure everything's okay, and fingers crossed it all will be, and we'll be set for the race at about 11:45 AM. So yeah, next update after qualifying. Thank you. Okay, I'm now recording this after the event, so I've done a mixture of live videos and post-record edit things like I usually do. So given this is going to be a 1 hour stint, I'll just talk you through the first couple of laps and then we'll go into a sort of edited highlight mode. You'll notice then you saw the orange Puma flash past the garage in front of me. That was Matt finishing his first stint. Now the idea with the Birkett is that being a relay, as one car passes in front of the garage, the next car goes out. Excuse me. In this case me. Matt peels off into the paddock and I go out onto the circuit, which is what's happening now. Now of course in a normal race situation you'd get a green flag lap, which is a controlled pace all the way around the lap before you start the race. You can use that time to get your tyres up to temperature, get your brakes up to temperature, so that when it comes to the green light, so to speak, everything's good to go and you can hammer it from the word go. Now unfortunately in the Birkett, as you'll have noticed, I've been sat in the garage for, well, nearly an hour since the start of Matt's stint. I have to be ready to go out because if he has any kind of problem, I can't be messing around getting my overalls on, getting my helmet ready, all that kind of thing, because we'd just lose time against our handicap. So I've been sat in the car for nearly an hour at this point. Luckily nothing did happen in Matt's case, and I was able to go out on schedule. But of course it means that having been sat for an hour, I'm already, you're not uncomfortable in the seat, but when there's no adrenaline flying around, you're conscious of the fact that the harnesses are really tight, and you know that can make breathing a bit tricky, and my glasses can steam up in the helmet, which gets annoying, and you know it's just everything's, it's not where you'd want to sit for an hour not doing anything, so you get a little bit agitated. But then of course when you do get out on the circuit, the adrenaline takes over and those things go away. However, everything is cold. All these cars that are around me that are overtaking me now, they are naturally faster, so they're going to overtake me anyway. However, they're also up to racing temperature, and they're all in the groove, and they've had several laps under their belt already to get their eye in. Now, I don't know if you noticed there, just on the left, there's a little bit of bodywork on the circuit. Yeah, somebody's clearly had an incident, but I couldn't see what, and I wasn't aware of what at this stage. So I've done nearly a lap now. We're about 3/4 of the way round. I've been trying to be a little aggressive with the steering, sort of trying to induce a little bit of understeer, and I've been braking quite heavily as well without locking the tyres up, just to try and accelerate the temperatures and get everything up to where it should be. Normally I would give it 2 laps to do that process, but in the Birkett we're not going 100% all the time. It's an endurance race, so I don't need to be 100% on it. So 1 lap of warm up, and then I can start pushing along without taking any risks. This is the final corner of the lap for us, so keep an eye out on the right hand side. You might see the yellow pit board, which Mark will have been hanging out for me. It's around there somewhere. No, I didn't spot it either. We're running pit to car radio in this race. We run it sometimes, not every race. Sometimes it's not necessary, but in the Birkett it is helpful to have it, because if anything happens to me out on the circuit, I can radio back to the pits and let them know to send the next car out. And you'll notice now that we've all slowed down, which is why I've put fast forward on. That bodywork that we spotted coming into the complex, it turns out there was an incident. There was a stranded car, so the safety car came out. I've just slowed the video down here. You'll be able to spot it on the right hand side. Where's the freeze frame? There it is. That's a Porsche. I think it's a Boxster, not that you can tell from here. So a lap and a bit in, and we've hit a safety car situation. It did take a few laps to clear up, so again we'll go into fast forward mode while I explain about the safety car situation. Safety cars, they are there to give the marshals time to clear up an incident without fear of another car spinning off and making it dangerous for everybody. When the safety car goes out, the idea is that everybody carries on at a reduced pace, but still at some pace, so that we can form a long crocodile of cars from the safety car all the way through the field to the last one on the grid. That creates a gap in the traffic, which the marshals can then use to do their clear up work. And what seems to happen in our club racing anyway, because I mean I'm flat out here, I'm absolutely flat out, and I'm barely catching the next car, and then look at this, it's a traffic jam on the start line. Stand on the brakes, let everyone catch up and sort themselves out. Mark was actually warning me on the radio. He was saying, don't come around the last corner flat out, because everybody's static on the start line. It's a weird thing. I'm sure there's some explanation for it, but when safety cars happen in multi-class racing, you get this concertina effect. Now, the other cars will put their foot down, I will also put my foot down, but they just go faster than I do. So even under safety car, it can be tricky to hang on to the back of the pack. You do your best, but it can be difficult. Now, from a strategic point of view, safety cars are actually quite good for us in the Birkett, because whenever the race is neutralised, the other cars aren't going fast enough to their handicap level, so they're not getting to exploit their extra pace. You know, in 5 minutes of normal running, they might pull out 1 minute of advantage, but in 5 minutes of safety car running, they don't pull any, or they shouldn't do anyway, theoretically. So that puts us a net 1 minute ahead, or 1 minute closer. So safety cars work nicely for us in this race. Not that we really want them, because it's no fun pootling around. You want to be going flat out and having fun in the car, but from a team perspective, safety cars are really helpful. You just don't want them to happen in your stint, but I copped for it this time, and that's absolutely fine. That's the way it crumbled on this occasion. So we're back into the racing now. There's a couple of cars ahead of me. The one directly ahead is one of the Hyundai Coupes. It's sort of got a dark blue left shoulder, and it's white. Oh yeah, look at that. Yeah, I've forgotten about that. I thought I'd left no space on the left, but the BMW thought otherwise and just went flying through. I'm not going to build a replay into this edit because it's too complicated now. I've got everything in place to do the voiceover, but if you want to go back and have a look at that, that was mega tight. What was I saying? Right, yeah, this the Hyundai Coupe. This Jaguar here. Let me just talk about this Jaguar. It was, you can just see it in the rearview mirror now. I think it was an XF or an XE. Pretty much in road spec with the relevant safety requirements. I can't remember the name of the team, but it was an all-female team of novices. Now, I love the fact that more and more women are getting involved in motorsport. I've got quite strong feelings on whether it should be segregated or not. I shall keep those feelings to myself for the time being. However, this Birkett Relay is difficult. There are a lot of things to consider, and you know, from a racecraft point of view, moving offline, understanding different car strengths and weaknesses, having the awareness to look in your mirrors as much as look forward. You know, a 10-second gap in front of you can be gone in a couple of corners when you're catching somebody at a high rate, and similarly 10 seconds behind you could be gone in a couple of corners if the car behind is catching you at a rate of knots. Now, that team of ladies in the Jaguar, as far as I'm aware, they were all novices, and watching the YouTube footage of the race itself afterwards, one of them being interviewed said it was her first ever race. Now, this is where it gets difficult for me. I'm all for participation and such like, but I don't think any novices should be entered into the Birkett. And my understanding in the rules is that no novices are allowed into the Birkett. We checked it afterwards and it said they are allowed in with written and express permission from the club. So if the club are going to let novices and people in their first ever race enter the Birkett, then why not just say that novices can enter? The lady in question, I can't imagine she had to make a case to the 750 club, because if you need the permission in writing, then it's almost saying, you know, I know I'm a novice, but... And the way I see it is that you might be a novice, but there is no but if it's your first race. You can't say I'm a novice but I've done X amount of laps, or I'm a novice but I've got loads of experience in multi-class, or I'm a novice but. If it's your first race, there is no but. Now, that particular clip there, I know it's way back when in this video, and I've been talking for 2-3 minutes about it, but it was dangerous. The driver in question was moving across different lines, trying to be helpful to the cars coming through, but unfortunately making things worse. I don't know if they got to the end of the race without any panel damage. I hope they did. I hope they all had a good time, and I hope they come back next year. But I also hope that the club are a little more mindful of letting novice drivers out in the Birkett, because the potential for disaster is too great to be messing around with that kind of thing. I don't normally get political on these videos, but I think it's quite important, and yeah, well, they're my thoughts about it anyway. So what's happened whilst I've been chit-chattering? I've just been hammering around, minding my own business, trying to overtake some cars. Had a good little scrap with a Golf, I think it was, I don't know if you spotted that, and tried to lose as little time when the leaders come up behind me and let them through. So yeah, a bit more fast forwarding until something interesting happens, which can't be too far away. Here we are. Ah, right, this blue car on the right that I've just sort of overtaken and then didn't overtaken, I nearly slid into him there. I was a bit late on the brakes trying to make the pass. It's one of those BMW 1 Series. I forget the name of the championship they all race in. It's like the 1 Series Cup or the BMW 1 Trophy or something like that. Now, we seem to have the legs on them down the straight. As you see, I managed to pull off a decent overtake, fairly drama-free down the straight. Now, I know those BMWs are diesel, so they can be a bit boggy getting out of the corners, but they also have massive, massive tyres on, much bigger than ours. So even though we've got the legs on them down the straight, and the Puma is normally a very, very nimble little car in the corners, just the extra rubber and the extra contact patch on those BMWs makes them very quick in the corners. If you look in the rear view mirror now, you can just see him edging up on my shoulder and then making a dive for the inside at Beckett's. And I think on lap time we're probably a little bit ahead of them, but I got squashed over to the apex there. If that was racecraft on his part, then you know what, fair play. He knew he was going to be vulnerable down the straight, so he tried to compromise me down the straight. If it was just naivety and he didn't know I was there, then shame on him a little bit. He should have been a bit more aware. But we'll go with the former and just put it down to racing. Now you see, it's taken a good half a lap to get that disadvantage closed back up. And again, knowing that I've got the pace down the straight, I'm going to go for it here, see if I can get ahead under braking, which I have managed to do. And what I'd like to do is move back over to the line to block him off, but I don't want to upset the car. I don't want to be steering right when we should be going left. And we've got another leader coming up around the outside again. Does he pass me on the outside here? Can't remember. But my plan was to make sure that I come out of... Yeah, there's the other one going around me. I wanted to come out of Luffield, that long right-hander, ahead of the BMW and use this straight to try and build a bit of a gap. Unfortunately, I think I'm now getting into the clutches of another BMW. And I thought, shall I chuck one up the inside here? No, because they are faster around the corners than me and I'll compromise my exit. And then the dark blue one behind me is just going to have another run up to the complex. Now if I can get ahead into this complex, that would be fantastic. But again, they're bigger tyres, they can brake a bit later, carry a bit more corner speed. So yeah, I'm just sort of resigned to sit in here and then try and get a really good exit off of this corner Beckett's through the left-hander at Chapel and onto the fast hanger straight. And you can see me closing. Now, do I go left? Do I go right? He kind of makes my mind up, but then one of the leaders comes through in a Porsche and nearly shuts that right-hand lane down for me. But luckily the timing worked out. And then here comes a Radical. Oh, and then I went into fast forward. Sorry about that. Yeah, what was happening now is just more of the same. I've said it before, I'm going to say it 3 times again. Trying to be as consistent as possible, trying to lose as little time as possible to the cars behind, the cars coming through, the leaders. And why did I go back into normal speed mode for this bit? It could be because of that gaggle of cars coming up ahead. When I did the edit with all the footage, I was trying to mark out the bits that were interesting and the bits worth talking about. But when I come back to do the voiceover, I've kind of forgotten what I was doing. It happens that in motorsport. You know, oh, it's the end of my stint. That's why I brought it back down. Right, so yeah, end of my stint. There's that Hyundai again. I'm going to talk about them a bit more later, but for the time being, look how much space I've just caught on him by attacking the pit lane. That's worth 4 or 5 seconds out on the road. If you look to the right hand side, you'll see Chris in the red Mazda MX-5. There he is. Chris is going to follow me down the pit lane now, and at the end I'm going to peel off and wave him out onto the circuit to go and do his stint. So as far as I'm concerned, that's job well done. Go on, Chris, there you go. Right, quick break in the voiceover now, back in a bit. Cheers, folks. Right, I'm just back in the paddock after doing my first stint. An hour in the car. It was alright, but we had a safety car for the first 10-15 minutes or so, which actually benefited us because it means that the faster cars can't exploit their pace when they're stuck behind the safety car. Some cars also got stuck in the pit lane as well. They got held at the end, which helped us out quite a lot. So at the end of my stint, we are 17th on the handicap. That's 2 hours, after 2 hours, 2 of the 6 hours. So Chris is out now in the 2RM red Mazda MX-5, and well, yeah, he's out for an hour. So hopefully by the end of his stint, if we could be top 15, that would be pretty awesome. As far as the session was concerned, it was all right. did struggle with traffic, but of course you're going to in the Birkett. Some cars were holding me up, and I also lost a lot of time letting some of the leaders through. But I did get some clear laps, and of those we got down to a low 2 minute 46, which is a bit slower than we were used to. When we were here with the Puma Cup, we were doing 244s, and we've got the lighter doors. We've got these locked up. We've got the lighter doors on, so the car is in a faster specification, but we're going about 3 seconds slower. So I don't really know what that could be. It could be just the track conditions, or it could be me, or it could be the tyres, because we've got some new old tyres on, and they might be a bit too hard, or maybe they're a bit older than we thought they were. But I'll have a chat with Mark, and we'll see about potentially swapping those over for the second session, see if we can go any quicker. But yeah, so far so good. This Birkett's going really well. Yeah, I'll drop you a line after my next session, and then of course again at the end of the race, and we'll see where we are then. Cheers guys. If I'd have had the foresight, then I would have said back to you in the studio, John. But no, and then I would have said back to me in the car, and no, that got confusing. Right, so once again, you just saw Matt Peel past in the orange Puma. He did a faultless second stint. So far so good. Everything has gone to plan. Chris's first session, I didn't get to speak to him about it immediately, because of course I went out on track, and then when I came back and Matt went out, Chris was in his car ready to go. So although it's only a 3-car team, 3 drivers, there's not much interaction between us through the event, because we're all either out on the circuit, sat ready to go out on the circuit, or we're recovering from being on circuit and getting ready to go out on circuit. So yeah, there's not much interaction. We do all know what's going on though. We keep a track of the live timing, which is provided by TSL, and also the 750 Motor Club, and I think it's Alpha Live broadcast a live stream out on YouTube, so we sort of keep an eye on things there, and make a note of what's going on in the race. Now, to put this into perspective and give you a bit of background, of course we're going for the handicap result. Now, a couple of years ago we came 12th overall on the handicap, so in my head I would love to beat that. I would love to get a top 12, but you know, beating it by 1 position is a little bit ropey. You know, come on, let's go for a top 10. None of us have had any issues. The lap times have been consistent, and the safety car worked and helped us out a little bit as well. So maybe that top 10 is actually on. Now, apart from the handicap, there's also a class system. And look, there it is. It's that Hyundai Coupe again. I keep saying I'll talk about that later. I'm going to talk about it now. The class system, I think there's about 6 classes in the Birkett Relay, based on engine capacity, what tyres you run, whether you've got a turbo or not, or that. I'm not honestly sure what all the classes are made up of, but we're in Class D. Whatever that means, I do not know, other than there were about 8 other people, or 8 other teams in Class D. I tried to remember the numbers of the cars that were also in Class D, so that if I came across them, you know, we might be a couple of laps ahead of them, but if I came across one, I would treat it like I was in a battle, because that kind of thing can add up over the course of 6 hours and translate into something. Now, it turns out those Hyundai Coupes, they were in the same class as us, and I've always had a bit of an eye on the Coupe Cup. They run about 25-30 cars every round. They are highly successful. They've got some really good promotion and marketing going on the socials, and the cars look pretty quick and reliable. When I say quick, it's a relative term, as quick as the Pumas when we're in Puma Cup spec. So I thought, you know what, I'd really like to get up close to one of those Hyundais and see a little bit about its characteristics. You know, is it rapid down the straight and slow around the corners? What's its braking distances like? That kind of thing. So when I came out on the second stint and it was right in front of me, I thought, brilliant, I've got a good chance to do some comparison here and have a bit of a scrap. But it took me a couple of laps to get my tyres and brakes up to temperature, by which time the traffic coming through and the fact that they were up to speed already, they just kind of drove off into the distance, and I wasn't able to make that comparison. So instead, I locked onto this little green and red Mazda in front. Now the Mazda MX-5s are one of the most popular race cars at the Birkett. There's an awful lot of them race in the UK, but for a non-Mazda driver, it's very difficult to know which specification each car is, because they all look the same. But some have got 1600 engines, some have got 18s, some have got a fancy gearbox, some don't, some have got fancy trick differentials and some don't, and yeah, for that reason I've no real idea. But I've been following this one for maybe a lap and a half, and I thought, you know what, I'm a little bit quicker. I am catching him, but I'm not like dominating over him, I'm not destroying him. It's just a few car lengths per lap. And for those of you that have ever played video games of racing, it's so much easier when there's a car in front to focus on, and that's pretty much what was happening here. We were dragging each other along, or he was dragging me along anyway. I hope that I was pushing them along, you know, when they see me in their mirrors, and it sort of sharpens the mind a little bit. But yeah, we were both making nice progress. We weren't slowing each other down, and just by being able to focus on that green and red boot or back bumper, it just helps you get in the zone, and it was great. I actually really enjoyed these laps. They might seem uneventful, not a lot happening, but when you're in the car, I mean, come on, you're driving your own little race car around the Formula 1 Grand Prix circuit at Silverstone. That is cool. Whether you're out there with 70 other cars or you're just doing it on your own, it is very, very enjoyable. So to be able to sort of have an imaginary race with this Mazda just made it even better. He might not have even known I was there. I could have been in my own little world here, but in my own little world, me and him were racing out for the Formula 1 British Grand Prix first place trophy, you know, something like that. You know, you ham it up in your head. It was great. And what's happening here? I moved over left quite early there. Some leaders coming. Yeah, there goes somebody. Oh, that was two of them catering. And what was that, a Porsche? I think that was a Porsche. So anyway, right, I'm focusing on the back of this Mazda. I was talking about the Class D situation. The 8 other cars in Class D, couldn't tell which was which when I was out on circuit, but Mark had been feeding to me over the radio that on the class positions, we were up there. When Mark gives me the positions over the radio, he won't say we're in third. Because it's too difficult to work out with the handicaps and everything. So you sort of look at your time and you look at the Class Ds ahead of you and behind you, and you give a bit of a best and a worst case. And at this point in the race, our best case was that we were second in Class D, and the worst case is that we were fourth in Class D. So I'm now thinking, actually, right, I've got to get my toe down a little bit here, because if it turns out that we are fourth, then it'll be devastating if we miss out on a podium, because I took it easy for too many laps. So I'm decided to get my foot down and go for it, and, you know, squeeze that extra second, possibly 2 seconds each lap. But one of those pesky BMWs comes up, and then look, its older brother comes along. I love that car. Reminds me of the touring cars from the late 80s. You know, Frank Sittner, and who else had one of them? Kurt Luby? Joe Winkelhock, or was it Manfred Winkelhock in the DTM? Don't know. Anyway, so easy to get sidetracked when you're doing these, and there's so many different cars out of the circuit. So yeah, right, got to clear that grey BMW, that 1 Series. Same deal as in the last stint. Quicker down the straights, but they've got an advantage in the corners. Overall lap time, I know that I can be quicker. So if I can get ahead, protect it for a couple of corners and a couple of straights, I should then have a gap with which I can start chasing this Mazda down. And I'm now starting to think, because of the class situation, that yeah, I need to get past this Mazda. I need to press on a bit. Not sure what the cut was there. Maybe it was just because it was me hammering around for God knows how many laps. The Mazda is still there in front of me. I've not been able to catch it, and I know you can't really make out the lap timer in the middle of my dashboard. You'll see that blue square, that blue piece of acrylic. The timer on the right hand side is a kitchen timer. We use that for measuring the pit stops, and in this case the stint length. It looks like it's on 21 minutes at the moment, 27 maybe. My elbow's in the way and sometimes the shadow doesn't fall nicely for you. The one on the left with the wire dangling out the bottom is an AIM Solo 2 lap timer. It takes a GPS signal and gives me all sorts of lapping information. It tells me whether I'm faster or slower than my previous laps, what my predictive lap time will be if I don't make any more mistakes, so on and so forth. It's a really, really handy little tool for getting up to speed quickly and for spotting where you might be losing time. Unfortunately, I went hell for leather in this stint chasing that Mazda, that red and green one, trying to clear those BMW 1 Series. I said to Mark before I went out in this stint that this is the last session of the year, so poor little Woodstock's getting nothing left. You know, it's all going to be left out on the track in this session. I didn't care about the brake pads and didn't care about the tyres. It was just all going out there. Now, just from pushing on that extra little bit had an exponential effect on the handling of the car, and maybe it was a bit daft of me or a little bit naive of me, but to put this into perspective, when we go out in Woodstock and everything's cold, the tyre pressures are around the 25 psi mark. It does vary from one wheel to the next, front to back, left to right, but what we want to do is push them out on the circuit so that they get hotter and hotter and the psi goes up, and we want to get to 30 psi hot. So we'll start at 24, 25, and the front left tyre is going to take the most hammer, and the idea is that it'll peak at about 30 where it gives up the maximum grip. However, my mistake was pushing too hard. I couldn't get the lap times. I was suffering understeer around the left-handers, and I honestly thought it was just track conditions, or I didn't really think of the tyres, because all the other times I've run this car this year, in fact ever, the tyres have never really been a problem unless it's been damp or wet, but in these conditions it's never been the tyres, so it wasn't in my head. It was only after this stint, when we got back to the paddock, Mark went round and checked all the PSIs. My front left was at 37. Now, considering where we started it had gone up by 9 psi, and normally it'll go up 4 or 5, so we've had double the increase that we're used to, and that front left is basically screaming, and it was screaming at me for half an hour. And if I'd have had the... oh, where's he going? Somebody just went off there, and another BMW has flying on the inside. Yeah, so that tyre was absolutely screaming. When a tyre gets over pressurised, it floats up like a balloon, and what you want is for the bottom of the tyre to be completely flat against the surface of the circuit. But of course, if you over pressurise it, it blows up like a balloon, and it goes a bit like a motorbike tyre in the sense that the contact patch shrinks in from the outside, and you end up with a piece about the size of a 50p coin in the middle, and you've just lost all that traction. So when I'm going hammering into Copse Corner, Stowe Corner, Abbey Corner, Luffield, leaning on that left front, there's probably about 30% of rubber in contact with the road to what there should be, and that 30% of rubber just can't handle it, and you end up getting understeer. And the only way to avoid that is to put more steering lock on, which makes the situation worse, or to get off the throttle and wait for everything to come back to you, which slows you down. So unfortunately, my plan to chase down lap times, and there's that Hyundai again, did you see it? Even in fast forward, even under the conditions of just hammering on going for it. I overcooked it, and with hindsight I would have been much better off just taking a couple of laps to let everything chill out, let everything calm down. I might have lost 5 or 6 seconds per lap, but then if I'm going to make up 2 seconds for the next 10 laps, I'm back to where I should be, and then any laps thereafter are a net win. But I didn't have the... If I'd have got all the numbers in front of me in the car, I'd have been able to work that out, and that would have been a great idea. But unfortunately, my brain capacity when I'm out driving Woodstock is pretty much limited to just driving Woodstock, not doing calculations and thinking about too much strategy. Right, we've just had another little edit there. I'm trying to think what might be coming up in the video. Was it another incident, or was it the end of the race? Not 100% sure, can't really remember. So whilst we clear this bit up, obviously there's lots of traffic going on, maybe I'll just stop the video for that. Let me tell you a little bit more about Chris Fantana in the 2RM Motorsport car and Matt Footman in the Matt Footman Racing Puma. I first met Chris I think 3-4 years ago. We decided to enter a Road Sport Series race at Donington Park in Class D, and we had a really good battle with Chris in his Mazda, and he was sharing it that day with Nick Ramsden. Nick is the other one of the RMs in 2RM Motorsport. And yeah, we just became, you know, we had a good chat, exchanged details, met on social media, so not met on social media, you know, interacted. And then we saw Chris again at the Plum Pudding and helped him out a little bit, and just became mates. And invited him to race in the Puma one time. That was a couple of years ago at the Birkett, actually. We did the Birkett as a team, and then Chris came out in the Puma Cup with us on the international circuit the following day. So that was quite a weekend, and we picked up a podium that day as well. Me and Chris in the Puma. Well done, Chris. And the other driver, Matt Footman, Matt also raced in the Road Sport Series in his orange Puma. Now his car's a bit quicker than mine. It's a little bit lighter because he runs on a power to weight series, and he can get a few more kilos out of the car. He's also got a bit more power. I've not really discussed with him where that power comes from, but I think he's got the racing cam and possibly a different map as well, with different I'm going to say spark plugs or injectors or something going on like that. And I know he's also got the limited slip diff, which helps him getting out of the corners. This is a good example around Stowe. I have to wait to put my foot down, but Matt will be able to stamp the throttle a bit earlier than me, and the trickery of the differential works it all out so that he doesn't understeer off the circuit, and over a long lap that can become quite significant. Oh, it's congested here, but I remember this bit. It's about 5 cars, and somehow none of us held each other up. All the leaders managed to get through. There's one of the Hyundai Coupe cars, and I just got overtaken by 3 cars, and I overtook 2 cars and didn't lose a single tenth. I don't think any of us did. We couldn't have choreographed that any better. That was fantastic. So yeah, Matt's car, the orange one, is it's a bit quicker than mine, and he also runs the Nankang. Is it the 052 tyre? Now the consensus on that is that it's a little bit softer and a little bit stickier than the Durezza that we run, but also the durability is not quite as good as the Durezza. So it's probably got a little bit more pace. How much more pace, I couldn't tell you. I've never driven it, I've never done a side-by-side or a comparison, but we're quite happy with our Dunlop Durezza. So Chris in the MX-5 for 2RM, Matt in the Puma, and me in Woodstock, coming together as some WINIFREDS school choir for the sake of entering the Birkett. Is this our 3rd or 4th Birkett? I'm going to say 4th. I think we've had 2 good ones and a bad one, and this was the 4th one, which honestly was going great guns. We knew that on the handicap results we were hovering round about 15th, Overall, we were about 50th out of 70. Oh, there's another one of those Jaguars, look. Do you remember I was talking about the other day? Lightning down the straights. Look how fast that thing was. But then it's on, I don't know what. I was told by their team manager, a friend of mine, Damo Hurst, that they were on pretty much road spec cars. But yeah, when they put their foot down, it didn't half shift. Maybe a couple of them were race prepped and a couple were road, I'm not sure. Maybe Damo will clarify that for me next time I see him. God, I've forgotten what I was talking about again. What was it? Oh, the positions. Yeah, so about 50th overall, about 15th on handicap, and we're fighting for a podium in the class. So, what's going on here? Oh, my computer's giving me all these like update notices. It'll clear off. Not interested. What else about endurance racing? I know you've been watching this for 45 minutes now. Thank you very much. I'm trying not to repeat myself, trying to keep it interesting. But you might be suffering a bit of video fatigue. Fatigue in the car can be quite a thing. Puma Cup races are normally 40 minutes long. So a stint in the Birkett's an hour. So that's half as much again. And I have to do it twice in the same day. Now, I've done it before, I know I can do it. It is physical, you do get tired. We don't run power steering in Woodstock. A, because you don't have to in the Puma Cup, and B, because I don't really like it. When you have power steering, everything feels a little bit too light around the steering wheel. Oh, that was nice. Just avoided his rear bumper and got on his shoulder. I hope I outbrake that Mazda into this corner, because I really should do. I can't remember whether I did or not, but I expect I did. There we go, have that. But did I give him much space on the left? Nope, absolutely not. Thank you very much. Right, again, gone and forgotten what I was saying. Video fatigue, race fatigue, that's right. Yeah, 40 minutes normal Puma Cup, this is an hour, and then 2 of them. And you do feel tired at the end of it. I defy anybody. Because there's no power steering, it's a lot heavier, and your arms do get sore, but the adrenaline keeps you going through the race. You only feel it about 20 minutes after the race. You think, flipping out, my arms are sore, and flipping out, my shoulders and my ankles, and, you know, just... I say ankles because you kind of have to hover your feet. You can't put them over to rest anywhere like you can when you're on the motorway. You know, your feet are always about to do something, so you have to hover them in midair to an extent, and that can be well, quite strenuous to say the least. Now you might have noticed the yellow flag flashing there on the left hand side. I was getting to the end of my stint. There was a yellow flag which could turn into a safety car, so Mark got on the radio and said, "John, come in a bit early." I think I'd done about 50 minutes of driving, so it's about 10 minutes shy. But you know what, I was fine with that, because if there is a safety car about to come out, we don't want to get stuck in the pit lane while we wait for the car to go past. So you might have seen Chris just parked up in the garage there. He's gone out on circuit, and that's that. We only went and bloody won it, didn't we? Yeah, Class D. There we are, myself, Matt and Chris. We got the winner's trophy. Well chuffed with that. That's how chuffed I am with that. It was hard fought this year. Everyone did brilliant. Nobody put a foot wrong for 6 hours. There's Mark and Sol joining us to celebrate with all our trophies. And yeah, there's me just sat in the car waiting to go. It was a great day at the races. Now then, don't normally do this, but here's some bonus footage for you. At home on the M1 North. It is treacherous out there. Look at the weather, it's horrific. We're still managing to roll along at 60 miles an hour, and I don't know if you noticed, but purely coincidental, I promise you this, that van in front is Mark in Vandal Caddy. I was listening to an audiobook. I was just listening to Patrick Stewart, and the chapter finished. I thought, you know what, I'll have 5 minutes and do the little review on the way home, just as Mark came flying past. He did set off from the track a little bit before me, so I'm guessing he stopped somewhere. presumably for a quick snack or something like that. So right, just a bit of reflection, I suppose. You know, we've been doing the Birkett for a number of years. We've had different degrees of success, but today's race felt like the ultimate for me. It was brilliant, start to finish. You know, Chris, well, Matt in his first stint didn't put a wheel wrong. Looking at the lap times, you know, slowest to fastest within 5 seconds of each other. Sorry, lap after lap, I mean. And that was the same for Matt, the same for me, the same for Chris. And that is about what you'd expect from a consistency point of view. Well, no, sorry, I apologise. It's not what you'd expect, it's what you'd aspire to. And, wow, look at that coach go flying by. He's not doing 60. I tell you what, it's a really tough journey, this, because my wing mirror is all fogged up on the right-hand side. And it's difficult to know if it's safe to pull out or not, but steady as she goes, we'll get home sooner or later, so that's fine. And that chap's just flashed me in, nice one, give him a thank you. So yeah, our lap times are all consistent. A couple of safety cars really helped us out. I think there were 2, possibly 3 safety cars in total, and of course in the last half an hour the rain started to come down as well. The rain that we're now in, and you can see what it's like. Chris must have been an absolute hero in his car, because we did have the option to pit and send somebody out on wet tyres, but the way things were panning out, it was not worth it, to be honest. It was just a case for Chris to keep getting the lap times and relative to the other cars, and hang on for the result. So we got our first place in Class D, as you know. The trophy is sat proudly alongside me at the moment as we're driving along. See if I can show you, 1 second. Ready? There it is. That's about as long as I dare take my eyes off the road, okay? So yeah, just been brilliant. Everybody got on really well. There was no incident, there was no arguments. You know, sometimes tempers can flare a little bit. Matt's family came along as well. It was nice to meet them, and Sol as well. Chris's main mechanic, Sol. What a guy! Sol's great. He's like Chris's version of Mark. He just gets stuck into everything, and he's a massive help to have around the track. Mark himself has done amazing today. He's had a lot to put up with, because Mark was sort of like the unofficial team manager today, and when you're in a position where you can get a trophy, that's quite a bit of pressure. And in my final stint, Mark got on the radio and called me in about 15 minutes early. Now, I don't know what he was thinking when he made that decision, but I was mega proud of him, because to call a driver in early is a bit of a thing. It's like it can be interpreted as you're not doing well enough, or, you know, if I wanted to be awkward, I'd be like, well, I've paid for my hour, so I'm having my hour. And for that reason, team managers can sort of pander to the drivers a little bit. So for Mark to make that call for me to come in, I respected it immediately, got into the pits, and it was clear why. That, you know, we needed the extra pace from Chris's car to cling on for the win. So great decision, well driven. What's going on with these lanes here? Oh, you can barely see them. It's amazing. So yeah, fair play. I'll shut up now, because there's other stuff I want to say on the end of the video when I get home and I've had a bit of time to think about it, and go through all the thank yous and whatnot. But I hope you've liked this video. It's a little bit different to all the others. Thanks to everyone that came along at the track, along with a family from Cheshire that we met. Their local circuit is Alton Park. A lady named Sally, who had a Puma in the late 90s and loved it. Her husband, whose name I forget, and their son Marcus. They all had a sit in Woodstock and got to enjoy him for a few minutes, and Sally got to reminisce. And thank you very much for your interest, guys. I hope we get to see you at a track again sometime, presumably Alton Park next year. Right, I'm going to go back to my Patrick Stewart audio book. His dad's just got home from the war. No spoilers for the rest of that book. And yeah, I shall finish this video probably sometime Sunday or Monday, but you don't need to know all that. Oh, here we go. Here we go. 50s, congestion. I knew it was too good to be true. Catch you in a bit. Cheers. Right, it's Sunday morning after the Birkett. I've come to unload, and as you saw in last night's video, the weather on the way home was pretty ropey, and I don't know if you'll be able to hear this with the traffic going by, but have a listen. Let me get a bit closer. Ready? Hear that? Yeah, we got loads of water in. So I'm going to drill it and see how much water actually comes out. Here's me, there we go. Yay! I don't know how long that's going to drain for now. I wonder if it's the same on the passenger side. I guess it should be. So we're going to see what the passenger side's like. Leave that be for a minute. Anything to chock the door open with. Oh god, there's loads in there, I can hear it. See if we can have a look in here. Oh my god, that's about 2 inches deep. Wow. That's going some. What's next then? More holes maybe? That's astonishing. Obviously I left everything here. Yep, that's got water as well. I left everything here. Oh yeah, there's no car. Rather than pack up last night. Because if I had have done that, then it would have been my road car, my daily, which was out on the front, and that would have been a good £200-300 to get that mirror replaced. So I'm grateful in that respect. But anyway, just thought I'd share with you another few musings, broken wing mirror, and and just the amount of water being carried around. I have to bear this in mind for wet races, you know, see if we can get it sealed better. Again, this one, there's not as much on this side, but I wonder why that is. Must be the seals, I suppose. Yeah, you can see it on the window actually, I've not spotted that. So, yeah, all fun. Right, let's get him put away for the winter. I say away for the winter, that's just going to drain in the car now, isn't it? That was stupid, John. Maybe wait a little while for them to drain. That's alright. Yeah, we've got lots of jobs to do this winter. So, although I say pack away, there's going to be plenty to keep us busy before we start our 2024 campaign. So, right, thought you might like that. See you in a bit. Cheers, folks.